John Landis is a very intelligent man. You know, I went to his house for dinner, which was sparse, and you know, there was no help, no caterer, just him and his wife leaning over me at the table. You want some more mustard? You know, I didn't need that. I thought he'd have a caterer and be magnificent. But there were a few nice people there, and we had dinner at his house, and he served salami for hors d'oeuvres, just little chunks of salami. Want a piece of salami? That's the kind of guy he is. And that's about the most exciting thing I've had with John. Pittsburgh, freezing my burgers, and being in Kelly's Heroes with him, bothering me every day, trying to come into my trailer to hang out with me and bring me coffee. In those days, he was a gopher. He denies that, but really he was beloved by everybody in the company because he was very giving of himself. He used to do all kind of jobs, and he loved film, as we know today. He denies this, but he was the guy that used to knock on your trailer and say, "You want coffee?" Real dummy. I don't know how he skyrocketed to become a director, but in those days, what is it, almost 40 years ago, we had a great time, and he was a lovely guy then. Now he's changed. You know, he has a few bucks, and he sits in his estate and blows smoke to the mountains. I don't know what he does.
32 years ago, I received an invitation to come out to MGM Studios in Culver City and see something called Schlock, the Banana Monster.
Schlock! There is no place to hide. No one is safe from Schlock. Schlock! Schlock! Schlock!
Imagine, if you will, your father walking around in an ape suit for an hour and a half. And then this is a cult classic.
John was going to make this movie. It was his first film, $30,000 budget film. And he went to Don Post Studios because he wanted like a cheap gorilla suit for the movie. I think they basically blew him off and didn't want to be involved with him, but they said, there's this kid that comes in here all the time buying stuff, and I know he has a gorilla suit, so they gave him my number. So I got a call from John, and he wanted to come out and talk to me, and I lived in Covina at the time, and he came out and scared the crap out of me. He was this hyperactive, you know, crazy kid who was very different. I was extremely shy at the time.
So after seeing the preview of Schlock, I was walking into the parking lot, and the lanky lone figure came along, tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Mr. Ackerman?" So I looked at the young John Landis very severely. I said, "You responsible for that movie I just saw?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, you'll hear from my lawyer on Monday." And he said, "Oh, what's the problem?" I said, "Well, isn't it evident? Look at this suit down on the floor, rolling around laughing. Who's going to pay for this?" I believe he had been given $50,000 by an uncle that said, "Okay, kid, let's see what kind of a movie you could make." And on the basis of the reception of it, he got an extra $10,000. And he had me come out to a movie theater, and he set me in an audience, and he said, "Now you just concentrate on that screen in front of you and pay no attention to what happens." So John Landis came in the Schlockthropus suit created by Rick Baker, sat down next to me. I was eating popcorn, and he began eating my popcorn and pouring it on my head, but I'm just so absorbed in the movie that I pay no attention to what's happening to me.
When I did Schlock, John told me the whole story of American Werewolf. and what his take on it was. And his feeling was that if you were going to change into a werewolf, it would be a painful experience, your whole body going through this metamorphosis, and that you wouldn't sit down in a corner of a chair like Lon Chaney Jr. did, you know, and be really still until your face changed, and then you would get up and move. He says, I want to see I want to see the pain. I want to see him moving around. I don't want him tied down. So figure out a way to do that. And fortunately, I had a long time to think about it because the movie didn't happen for many, many years later, and gave me some time to kind of figure out a way to do the transformation that hadn't been done before. It was all pretty much John's shot list, though. He said, I want a shot like this, I want a shot like this, I want a shot like this, you know. And then I'd say, maybe there we could use a thing where we put David in the set and stretch out his body and do stuff. But John was the mastermind behind the way it was set up.
It was so exciting when we were shooting Blues Brothers. He was preparing his next picture, and completely different, and all of us were infected by how great we knew that movie was going to be. And it was wonderful to see the designs coming in, and working with this staff of people, and the anticipation of going to England.
I mean, it was all difficult. We were kind of like flying by the seat of our pants. Nobody had done anything like this before, really. And John was smart enough, first of all, to shoot this post-production. He knew that these makeups were going to take time, and so we filmed the whole movie except for the transformation. Got rid of a lot of the crew, had a skeleton crew. So we do the long makeup on David Naughton, come in on the stage, shoot that, take him away, make some changes, come back. So there wasn't a whole big crew standing around. But when it came time to shoot the change-o heads, which took us months to build, if you go action, thing goes cut. Okay, we got it. It's like, that's it. It took us months to build this. He goes, I got it. I got what I need. And it's like, okay. And I was kind of disappointed. But it wasn't until the film came out, and when those shots were on screen, and the audience stood up and cheered and flipped out, I was like, oh yeah, that was worth it. It was cool.
It looks like it's really happening. It doesn't look like a special effect, and that is wonderful.
I do find some of the horror in it really terrifying and really gory. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of, why be quite so gross? With this extraordinary sequence at the end with the bus and everything, and the man's heads comes off. And John Landis would always say, well, of course, you have to realize that most of that has actually happened because someone's trying to avoid a dog. I don't really think of him as being a horror movie director, peculiarly, because he seems to be a relationships director. In the case of Werewolf, it's about, actually, the problems and the things that are wrong. Nurse falls in love with a young man who turns out to be a werewolf. It isn't all about running down corridors and screaming and shouting and terror and things. It isn't that kind of horror.
I think American Werewolf was way ahead of its time. I mean, I'm not just talking about the makeup effects part of it, really, but the film. I mean, the way, the blend of comedy and horror, the way the music was used in the film.
There's comedy throughout. The scene in Werewolf, the scene in the moors, and the scene in the tavern that they go into. I mean, it's scary, and it's but there's also there's humor in it. The way Griffin Dunn plays the ripped up corpse, it's played with the kind of an attitude of look what's happened to me, and it's kind of a little smirky, cast-off kind of way of approaching his situation.
Oh, be serious, would you?
It's a very delicate line to walk, but he walks that line with such dexterity and such an energy. There's always such an energy and such a voice, and it's going to come, God, you follow it.
At the time, I was really questioning. I was thinking, is this really going to work, and does he really know what he's doing? And is this funny, all these dead people in the porno theater, do we really want to do this transformation in a bright room with Blue Moon playing in the background, Is that the best way to do this?
It's great. I mean, there's humor in all of John's movies, even in the horror movies, but I did a piece with him where I got to play a scary blue-faced monster, and that was fun with Albert Brooks, singing the Midnight Special. And when it came time to be the scary blue-faced monster, he wanted a real scary blue-faced monster with a good roar and a nice implied bite to the neck and heads coming off and all that. So I was happy to play that for him.
The funny thing was, actually the opening sequence in Twilight Zone, originally John wanted it to be John Landis and Rick Baker in the car. It was going to be the both of us. And then, do you want to see something really scary thing? It was going to be the two of us for some reason, and I forgot why it ended up not being us. I guess probably because they got real actors.
Most actors will tell you recognizes that when the actor shows up on the set, he's there with his bags packed. There's very little other than, you know, louder, softer, slower. Don't do that with your hands. Move your face this way. Hold your hand this way. Bring that up here.
He always said to me, Don, don't worry about the lines. You keep worrying about the lines. Just do the acting like he knew. Well, what does he know, you know? And he's a fine director. He really is. Because you would discuss the scene and he would know his work pretty good. He really did. And he's done some, you know, I made fun of his films, but he's done some damn good stuff in his career. And now he's doing home movies, you know, in a cellar. Louise is the leading lady, beautiful girl. Don't say much.
But he's not one to come in and say, you know, the blue-faced monster, when he was a child, was dropped in an acid bath and then dipped in cold water, and he remembers that his mother, no, you know, the blue-faced monster will now scream, roar, and look like he's going to bite the guy's head off. Hitchcock was never one to, you know, overly explore the emotions in the background and do the Stanislavskian, you know, labyrinthine study of the character, which some people need to work. You know, Hitch got it done, and it was just with a little slower there. If you'd come in just here, put your hand here behind it, you know, Landis will direct in that way, just like Hitch or John Ford. You know, get the actor through, get what he wants, live to his vision.
He's very opinionated. There's no way he holds back in what he's saying. He can be quite, you know, to some people he seems quite rude because he's absolutely straight. You know, he says what he feels about things.
Whether you agree with him or not, he'll present it as, well, listen, that's nice that you think that, but I'm talking to God himself, and he says this is wrong. And then what's frustrating about it is that you go, well, I think you're wrong. And then in the end, you see it and you go, oh, God, he was totally right.
He takes credit for anything. When I go to the bank to take money out of my vault, he said, I'm a personal guy that hands him the money. He's a lonely guy. He really is. Do you know him well? You're better off. You don't need that kind of friendship. Trust me.
He and I were very fond of Bela Lugosi and Dracula, and Boris Karloff and the immortal Frankenstein monster.
The guy, you know, he knows people, left field people I never heard of. I'd like you to meet John Clemenceau, and he discovered bugs. He's a dear friend of mine. He meets all these weird people. It's annoying to be with him, you know.
I knew, you know, of course, just from the moment of meeting him, you know, the Fangoria magazines were around, and you know, and he loved, you know, that genre, and he would always work in it.
That was excellent. John called me about. He said, you know who Michael Jackson is? I go, yeah, Jackson 5. I know they are. You know, he wants to do. He really liked American Werewolf. He has a song, Thriller. Do you know the song? No. You know, but he wants to do the video of it. So I'll send you a copy of the song. You get some ideas, you know. And he wants to do American Werewolf kind of stuff. He definitely wanted to do a transformation, and I was concerned. I go, you know, this guy's a big rock star. I don't know if it's the best candidate to do a bunch of these makeups on, you know. But it turned out that Michael was great. He really likes the whole process and likes being made up. I was actually really surprised because, you know, thinking it was going to be like a music video, and then when we started talking to Michael, I mean, he really wanted to make it a film.
It had a plot and special effects. It had a budget, and you have all this really visceral stuff. Is Vincent Price does the opening, right? Oh, God. Vincent Price in a music video? What do you need? It's incredible. It's like a little movie.
Yeah, I think there was 3 or 4 cameras on the whole dance number with big dollies and boom things all over the place, you know. And, but yeah, John's got quite a musical background. I mean, I know he definitely did blues stuff in Blues Brothers and likes music, and you know, I think showed it all really well in that.
Innocent Blood in general is not one of his most successful movies.
Giant bomb. And we went to Pittsburgh like morons. Robert Loggia, fine actor. Robert Loggia even said, big star Robert Loggia, and whispered to me, why are we here? Why? And he always directed, John always directed in a suit and tie. 30 below, everybody's in parkas. He's got a suit and a tie on, like he's going for cocktails. You know, roll him.
And there's Aunt Parallel running around in a little dress. I'm going around with a suit. There's Don Rickles freezing his butt off and all that. The physical demand on you, the cold and the suit, and the violence of it, to play a mafia guy of this type who's got this lady's vampire blood in him. He becomes a vampire, but it gives him this extrasensory perception. He says, I can hear an angel fart. and to look at Don Rickles' neck like it's a great bowl of chili and bite into it. You know, it's. I scared the shit out of Don, as a matter of fact, being a method actor.
And the man did this picture. He said, Don is going to be, because he did that, Werewolf of London. That's all those, monkeys into Japan, queer dogs in the Amazon, idiot movies. And he suckered me into this in Pittsburgh, and I went right in the dumper. Right in the dumper, and to this day, he has posters and all. Boom, boom, boom. Sends me posters, Don. Wasn't it great working there? I swear to God, my grandson is 4, and he walked out.
The basic idea behind Deer Woman is a woman with deer legs goes into a party, seduces a man, takes him out to the forest, fucks him, and then kills him. This is the silliest idea I have ever heard in my life. In my life. And, my dad's argument, which is true, is that, well, a man sucking another man's blood or a man turning into a wolf, that's silly too. No, not as silly as a woman with deer legs having sex with a man. Nothing's that silly. So the humor was immediate. And the humor was primarily based around the idea that the characters thought the situation was ridiculous.
Retarded. John and I discussed it, and John said, a lot of it's very, very straight, and we want to make it as real as possible. And, that was sort of the challenge, is to make sure that these characters are, just reacting to things and being as real as they can be and actually being people.
Officer down at 35 AV1 Maneri, apartment 406.
What have I done? We did a shot right before my character gets mugged. We came up, walked up this block and walked down this block, and they were all, and it was pretty complicated. And so anyway, by the time this thing was set up, that the birds were coming out, and all the homeless people were waking up and walking around the street, and we were shooting in an area of Vancouver that was, a little hairy. And, they kept adjusting the camera, and they kept doing stuff, and then we got it, and we got the shot, and of course the shot ended in this alley, so urine-soaked that, the ammonia, the ammonia was, the smell, it was just, and people, and I remember I turned to some girl in the crew, and I said, do you smell that? And she was gagging already, so, and they got the shot, and when you finally see it, it looks like night, it's the magic. And I said that to John, and John says, well, of course, because I'm a director, and I know how to do those things, so. Who knew?
The end of Deer Woman. Deer Woman is shot several times, then hit with a car and pinned against a tree. My father calls me. Max, a few people around here are saying they'd like it if she turned into a giant deer. I don't want her to turn into a giant deer. A few people around here are saying that, and I think it's stupid. I wanted to know if you think it's stupid. I think it's incredibly stupid. Okay, so we're gonna have her disappear then. No! Dad, don't have her disappear. I want her dead. I want everyone to know that the Deer Woman is dead. We're just gonna have her disappear then. No, Dad, promise me, not as a director to a writer, but as a father to a son, that she will not disappear. My dad sends me the DVD, and at the end she goes, and disappears. That's the story. And it really bothered me, because then I showed it to my friends, and I was like, so would you like it better if she was dead, or if she disappeared? And they said, well, it makes sense that she disappeared. And I went, ah, no! That's the story, again, of my dad being completely right. But I thought it turned out really well. I think he's a really good director. It's nice to know that about your father. It's neat, because, I know this kind of big guy who lumbers around the house and yells a lot, and then to see him, do something of mine really kind of actually touched me in a weird way.
Well, John's made his bones in the horror genre for sure, in the horror/comedy genre, I think, and I think he's right up there with all those guys.
We have this funny relationship where I think we think of each other as, I think of him as this kid director guy, and he thinks of me as the kid makeup guy that lived in Covina, and we don't really think of ourselves, when we're thinking of each other as the position that we're in.
The man is a fountain. He will tell you things about pitching scripts and about the way scripts are structured that you would just not think of. It's one of the kindest people I know. And you learn from him whether you want to or not.
I was on my way to become somebody, and then I met him and everything. No, I would sum up saying John Landis is a very intelligent man, and respected by me and many actors. And he deserves it because he's very conscientious. He loves his work. He loves his wife. He's got a beautiful wife who's a designer, and she's great.
I'm forever grateful to John Landis. I had a wonderful wife for 41 years, and John Landis took my loss to heart. He took me to dinner at Musso and Frank's just to take my mind off my loss. And unlike the majority of directors in Hollywood, he's a real mensch, as we say, a real human being.
Cut. Brilliant! Okay, how was that?